Hello and welcome to Tape Notes. My name is John Kennedy. Thanks for joining me. Before we jump into the podcast, I've got a few exciting things to tell you about. The first couple of things are prizes. We have prizes. We have a signed piece of vinyl up for grabs. All you have to do is head over to our Twitter page to enter. But we also have some serious kit for you to win. A Focusrite Claret 8 Pre interface or an Ovation Peak synth are up for grabs. All you have to do to win those is to answer a simple questionnaire. It really is quite straightforward. To be in with a chance of winning, just go to our Facebook page, complete a short questionnaire. It will take about 3 minutes, and it would really help us to find out more about what you'd like on the podcast. And the incentive to go there and do this really is this kit. Focusrite Claret 8 Pre interface or an Ovation Peak synth. This is big time stuff. They could be yours. Have a look at the Facebook page, complete the short questionnaire, and you could walk away with these things. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome to Tape Notes, the podcast that looks behind the scenes at the magic of recording and producing music. Every episode will be reuniting an artist and producer and talking through some of the highlights from their collaboration in the studio. So join us as we lift the lid on the creative process and the inner workings of music production to see what lies beneath. Hello, I'm John Kennedy, and joining me for this episode of Tape Notes are Justin Lockie and Elliot Williams from Editors, and producer Leo Abrahams to talk about how they recorded and produced the album Violence. Editors are a British five-piece comprised of singer-guitarist Tom Smith, bassist Russell Leach, lead guitarist Justin Lockie, keyboardist Elliot Williams, and drummer Ed Lay. Originally a four-piece, the members of the band met while studying music technology at Stafford University and collectively relocated to Birmingham upon their graduation. After a few years of extensive gigging and experimenting with various different names and lineups, the band signed to the Newcastle-based indie label Kitchenware Records in 2004 and changed their name to Editors shortly after. Kitchenware issued the band's debut single Bullets in early 2005, managing to sell out all available copies in one day and earning comparisons to the dark, dramatic atmospherics of contemporary bands like Interpol and Block Party. Their follow-up single, Munich, made them darlings of the UK music press and was eventually re-released in 2006 to ramp up support for their debut album, Backroom, which steadily climbed the charts throughout 2006, ultimately peaking at number 2. The band have since gone on to release 5 more studio albums, all of which have reached the top 10 in the UK charts, including 2 number 1s. Leo Abrahams is a British musician, composer and producer most known for his work with artists such as Pulp, Imogen Heap and Brian Eno. As a child, Leo was given an acoustic guitar by his parents at the age of 7, only to ignore it in favour of the piano until he was 12. As a teenager, he played guitar in a succession of bands and also displayed a talent for writing classical music. He attended the Royal Academy of Music with the goal of becoming a classical composer, but became disillusioned and left to tour with Imogen Heap after getting a call from manager Mickey Modern, to whom he'd sent a demo years before. Amazingly, his journey to becoming a session guitarist began with a fortuitous meeting with Brian Eno in a Notting Hill guitar shop, after which the pair became friends and a working relationship formed. Since then, Leo has played on over 100 records by artists including Florence and the Machine, Annie Lennox and Badly Drawn Boy, as well as many produced by Eno, such as Grace Jones, Sean Kuti, Nick Cave, Paul Simon, and even Eno's own album with J. Peter Schwarm, Drawn from Life. Beyond the guitar, Leo's role as a producer has seen him work with acts such as Wild Beasts, Paolo Nutini and Frightened Rabbit, and he has also co-written and arranged a variety of film soundtracks, including Peter Jackson's The Lovely Bones with Brian Eno and Steve McQueen's award-winning Hunger with David Holmes. And last but by no means least, Leo has released a number of albums as a solo artist. Today, I'm here at Iguana Studios with Leo Abrahams, and joining us from a hotel room in Birmingham are Justin and Elliot from Editors to talk about how Violence was recorded and produced. And what better way to start that conversation than by hearing something from the record. It is Magazine by Editors from Violence, their 6th album, and I'm here in a studio in London today to talk to Editors and Leo Abrahams about the creation of the album Violence. Leo, hello.
Hello.
And then, by the wonders of modern technology, we have two members of editors, Elliot Williams. Hello, Elliot.
Hi, how's it going?
Very good, thank you. And Justin Lockie on guitar.
Hello.
Hello. I thought maybe you'd add a lick then, but there's no need. So you're in Birmingham today, Elliot and Justin, because you're in the midst of editors' rehearsals for upcoming touring. Is that correct?
Yes, we're just about to start sort of getting into summer festivals, so we're sort of setting all of that up now.
Getting prepared. And so
Getting prepared, yeah.
Leo and I are here with Leo's laptop, which has all the various different stems from the recording of the Violence album. So we're going to travel back in time, 18 months or so to when you were recording this record. How did working together come about? Because I know that the last Editors album in Dream had been a self-produced affair. And so having had that experience, you looked to Leo for extra help, or why did you decide, actually, we're going to self-produce, but we need somebody else involved as well?
It was, and I can tell you the exact moment we decided to get Leo Abrahams in. We were at Cosmonaut Festival in East Germany, well, a few summers ago, and we'd recorded pretty much most of the record ourselves in the same way. We didn't plan to record the record ourselves. We just started in a little space in Oxford, and we got to the level where we just tracked loads and loads of stuff. Just like we do with In Dream, same process really. And we also started working with Ben, Blank Mass, who had been taking our songs, all our session files, and he'd tear them apart and put them together himself. And then it got to the point where he'd done most of the record like that. So we had our record that we recorded in Oxford over a space of like 6-7 months. Ben's record he did on his own, probably in his bedroom in Scotland. Yeah. So we had two records, of which we didn't really have the best idea on how to put them both together and get the best out of both worlds.
I think at that point as well, we'd been solely making the record on computers, really.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't too much organic elements flying around, and we thought that we needed someone, I guess, to sort of help bring out the band and the more human aspect of what Editors is.
Right.
And the first person that popped into the head.
So on a rainy day in East Germany, I called Rob, who is Editor's manager, after talking in our dressing room. We said, we reckon, and I think Leo had just finished the Ghost Poet record, and we loved how that sounded. And Leo did
Frightened Rabbit,
Pedestrian Verse with Frightened Rabbit, which is one of our favourite records, whilst we were out in Nashville recording the previous record. And Leo had been
on the lips.
Yeah, in our brains for quite a few years. And I think Leo, when he first heard it, was trying to bring the elements of the band to the fore, as opposed to having a straight electro record or a straight kind of in-dreamy type record.
Yeah, I think I remember when the tracks first arrived with me, and it was before we talked about production, we were just talking about additional production. Mm-hmm. And I felt a bit bad because I think I had just added even more tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those
you sent me your files. Yeah.
Some of those did end up on the finished thing, so it was all right. But yeah, I think it was later when it was directly kind of stated, we need someone to make this a finished thing. And actually, one of the first things that I did was go and look at some of the live footage, because you'd already been performing these songs, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
And I really, really liked what was going on there. And so it became about kind of trying to get the energy of the band and keeping, you know, the best bits of what you already had, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was the solution to that to get them to go in and record again, or was it to file manage?
No, file manage my way to spontaneity.
Yeah.
No, it was actually after some kind of umming and ahhing, we decided to go to this studio called Monnow Valley in Wales, where I'd actually done that Frightened Rabbit record years ago, which is an incredible space with a whole room made of glass, and it's just a beautiful studio and a beautiful place. The main thing that I was missing from even the Oxford demos, the band demos, was just a sense of space, really, particularly around the drums. And I really liked the sound of sort of collage things, of things recorded in different places, put together, and you can contextualize quite a lo-fi sound with amazingly recorded drums, and then it becomes, you have contrast, and then it's interesting.
Yeah.
And so it was really about bringing that sense of air and performance, and also just not having anything looped, rhythm-wise.
Yeah, so they actually play it rather than just
so that every hit is different, I mean, Ed's just got an incredible feel, and it was a lot about actually getting his feel on the songs and then file managing everything around that, percussion-wise.
Wow, that's interesting. And so what should we listen to first? I mean, do you have any of the Oxford demos?
Yeah, I think you have one of Tom's first demos of the track, which might be interesting to hear because that's what we got sent as a band, and it's very different. And the song you can kind of hear it's very formed. Tom tends to bring very formed ideas to the band in terms of structure, lyrics, chords.
One more wasted digging hole down where the streets are paved with soul. It makes it harder to join the dots. The river gets wider.
Always reminded me of the Hollies, that.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I never heard this.
The last train will pull you through.
Procol Harum there.
Yeah.
At night the war still comes to you.
I was worried this would happen, you see. It's made me want to do it all again.
I know, honestly, listening back to some stuff, I was like, oh.
I mean, that is kind of amazing because it paints Tom as a solo Moody Blues Procol Harum Hollies guy, which I would never have thought of in a million years.
Well, most of the times when Tom comes with his tracks, it's just him that he's been locked away in his studio in his house for a few months. And essentially, we took over a rehearsal space on the outskirts of Oxford in a field. And we just put all our stuff in there. We all have our own stations. And then we listen to Tom's demo. Then everyone kind of gets to work in their own little area. And we start throwing ideas across on how, tempos, where we could take this song. And it rarely ever stays where Tom brought it in. If you put out Tom's demo record, it'd be a vastly different record to where we ended up. Even having recorded it 3 times.
It would be great in its own right.
Yeah. And then that's the testament to Tom's songwriting.
Yeah.
So what happened next after you...
I guess at that point, we then spent probably a bit of time together taking the song in a lot of different ways, to the point where I think we were all quite frustrated.
There was a really weird... on this one especially, I remember because we tried keeping that spacious, low-tempo attitude to it, and it ended up sounding like really bad reggae. I remember it. I remember because Russell threw this pulsy kind of symphony that had offbeat, and I think we swiftly moved on from that. And in fact, I think it was Russell again who came to the kick. I think he just said, "I think we could just turn this around."
You didn't bring that demo in with you, did you? Where is it?
That demo got burned and buried.
But it's interesting because when I heard the Blank Mass version after hearing the previously released album version, I heard a little bit of reggae in the Blank Mass one, and when I hear that demo, I can hear the pulse of that keyboard kind of has a reggae feel to it. So that I can see that connection.
That I blame Elliot for.
I think the thing with this track was the tempo was very balladish.
Yeah.
And then when we put the kick on it, it's sort of it's kind of beyond techno. It's 140, so it's very quick. But I think Russell just started hammering out this 4 to the floor kick, and I started...
you did the
offbeat moog sort of bum pulse thing, which I think if you got the Room demo there. So this was actually the inception point of that, and it was the last thing that we did of the day. And you can sort of hear Tom then started to sing the vocals over it, and I started to play the keyboard along with it. And this was kind of the point when, oh, hang on a second, maybe this could be a bit of an up-tempo. The feel of it changed quite differently.
It got a lot darker really quickly after that.
Maybe if you play that, then you can see the sort of inception of where it started to change. So this is literally recorded on Tom's iPhone.
Wow,
it's there, isn't it?
It is there.
And Tom does that quite a lot actually. When we're working on things, he takes. So everyone's thrown their files over to me, in my workstation, which is where I have all the recording stuff.
Tom's singing along, and then I play this keyboard now. Which
And
didn't
but
say,
his iPhone is recording just what's in the room, in the air.
the room,
Right?
it's
So
a PA.
there's
What he
nothing
does, he
plugged
takes-
into it.
No, he takes a room recording, like when there's a turning point and he wants to work on something, he'll then take that away with just knowing kind of like where the vibe's going, and then he'll think about stuff outside of the room with the iPhone demo.
Yeah.
thing.
But you can, the feel is there. We've sort of, I mean, we don't have got the chorus, but I don't think we have the
No,
hook
we didn't
after the
have-
chorus.
In front of us, it makes it harder to join the dark. The river gets wider in front of us. Baby, we're nothing but violence, so desperate and
This is like basic going through the arrangement to see if it all works. And also with the change in tempo, will the lyrics and will the way Tom sang his original, will it work with the new tempo and new direction? You know, so he came in with one thing and then it's kind of transposing the diction and how he's attacking his lyrics and his melodies, and we usually run it through like that for quite a while, isn't it? Until we're locked in and we know that we don't have to come back 2 weeks down the line and go, actually the lyrics aren't really working, and so we usually get that quite tight.
Yeah, and that was clearly working for you. So then you went and recorded in Oxford. Is that
Well,
right?
this was in
That-
Oxford
that
as well.
was in
So
Oxford.
that was in Oxford.
Yeah, that was in the room on a Friday night. We went away for the weekend and we came back on Monday and recorded what we've got as the Oxford session, which is kind of, it's pretty fully formed as well, really.
Should we listen to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, just play a tiny bit of that.
down where the streets are paved with souls. It makes it harder to join the dark. The river gets wider in front of us.
And all that clapping stuff.
That is the guys in the room.
That's the guys.
Oh, really?
That's the rest of the band stood behind me around a microphone with headphones on.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, that's probably like a week's worth of work from the inception of Tom with his phone in a room, listening to a kick drum, to that.
Mm.
And also, one thing I do remember is when he came back in on the Monday, he had the tag at the kind of the end of the chorus. You know, the ooh, the violence bit. There's a eureka moment. It's like, wow, that's a hook, mate. That is great.
And also at this point, Ed had spent a week on drum machines making a million tracks of insane percussion and all that, which he loves to do when he gets set on it.
We call them Ed's weasels.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Ed had his pack of weasels all sorted after that week. And yeah.
They were great. There's always so many great ideas. It just was a case of
All at once.
making all at once, yeah, and kind of making them talk to each other a bit more, and the vocal around the live kit, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
So all the ideas were fantastic. It was just the weasels had to be heavily tailored.
Tamed.
Yeah, and in some cases brutally killed. And I say that as a lifelong vegetarian.
Yeah.
But
And there's also I think that we probably learned actually from being in Mono Valley with Leo is there's not much repetition in Leo's. When he digs through your files, there's something that'll come in once and you'll never see it again for the rest of the song, which is part of it's a really brutal way of working, but we'd never think of doing that. If something was this cool thing, like one of Ed's weasels, we'd loop it up and
it would be there forever.
It'd make multiple comebacks throughout a track. But Leo,
I mean, yeah, maybe you should explain, Leo, from the point where you had all our stuff, what the process was for you. Then after that point,
I think, well, beyond what we've talked about with having the fundamentals of the tracks be the band, I think then it just becomes about the way that all the sounds relate to the lyrics and each other. Like, I think in the end, it's not always like this, but I think in the end on this, all the programming ended up being more like shading of the main drum part and kind of more like fills really a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it is. There's so much going on that I remember when I was trying to learn it, even for the keyboard part. There's so many times where things duck out. It's never straight. There's never that sort of repetition.
Yeah, cheers for that, Leo.
Well,
it makes rehearsals so much more interesting. But you don't play there. No, I do. No,
well, at least everyone can say that they all got their ideas on.
No, Leo cut you out there. Really? That was my favourite bit. Were you not there when we recorded it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, that is natural, literally natural. That's what nature is. And talking about things being organic is a very kind of hackneyed way of talking about them. But by organic, I don't mean an acoustically recorded snare drum. I mean something that feels like it's really living, and that even if it's been programmed, that someone has played, spontaneously. And it's really interesting how you perceive one bar of material if you've just listened to it then, or if you listen to it from the start of the song. So when I'm kind of editing stuff, I guess I don't like the effect of loops much. Like, I do understand the function of it and I understand why it's great. But when I'm producing a band, I don't tend to like them much. I want it to be like a conversation through the whole song. And it's kind of an instinctive thing. And in some ways, the editing is quite performative, because in the end, with a rhythm track, you don't want too many things going on at the same time, all the time. It should be simple. But if things are coming and going a lot, it keeps you interested for the whole song, and hopefully it makes a record that isn't just going to sound good coming out of your laptop for 5 seconds, but you can actually listen to again and again on headphones and be interested in it,
Yeah.
But actually, I think it goes back to, you're probably going to cut this out, but I'm going to say it anyway. It goes back to what, like, my upbringing, I guess, was classical music. And I was really into this composer called Morton Feldman, who was all about repetition with tiny changes. And he was particularly interested in old Turkish carpets, because if you look at them, they look symmetrical, but they're actually not perfectly symmetrical because they've been made by hand. So it's the appearance of symmetry, but the reality is it's not perfect. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks, that idea. And I realise now how, even though I completely swerved off course in terms of the classical music, I'm still doing the Morton Feldman in this sort of peculiar way.
That's great.
But we
That's
could listen to it.
I think
that
it
would be great.
As we said before, I think that element that you brought was really interesting for us because, I guess in some ways have been stuck in our ways in terms of looping, or, we have band members who are quite OCD, and when things aren't symmetrical, then it tends to make people twitch. But once we sort of let that go, then it was a bit of an eye opener.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I'm not even convinced that I'm right about all that. But it's just what I want to hear from...
It's too late now.
It's too late now. Yes, it's been too late so many times. No, but it's just what I want to hear from music, particularly if the heart of the music is performative,
Yeah.
Mm. So a lot of that was created in the editing then, rather than in... you're not in the room in Wales saying, right, you stop, you carry on, you're not in a different direction like that.
No, because when people are playing, it's just fantastic all the time. But we did quite a lot of takes where, like, Justin would play guitar through my Ableton or the MS-20 or different pedals, and I'd be switching them around and stuff like that. And loads of that, like, first takes ended up in the finished thing. Because it's that, I always have this feeling like what you want to capture from good musicians is the first time they do something, because it's so exciting, the energy of it. And I'd rather...
Yeah, happy accidents too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's worth doing a bit of jiggery-pokery in the box to get that raw energy and the excitement from the first feeling, So it's that, really.
Yeah.
But we get the drums and bass, real drums and bass at Mono Valley, and then we'd sort of all sit around together and reassess what needed to be done with all of the other bits and pieces. So it was a very interesting process for me as well. I don't think I've ever quite worked like that before. I really enjoyed it though.
Yeah. Yeah. So in effect, kind of replaying it all, but you've caught your bass and drums, you know what the grid is in a way, and then everybody kind of overdubbed, redid their parts, but with
re-looked at them as well. I mean, there's some parts that ended up on this song which I think it just started with me messing around with like a really dirgy heavy guitar, like clang thing going on, which that was just, I think we were just messing around with the sound, and you said, just take it, and it ended up being what I play live now.
Oh, amazing! Really, I might be able to find that.
I play the gong gong gong.
Oh wow, there
That
we are.
one, yeah.
Yeah, that's the glass room at Mono Valley.
Yeah, it'd be good to illustrate, say, something that comes within the first couple of minutes that you don't hear again in the third minute and the fourth minute, if that was possible.
If we listen to a bit of drums, of the live drums. This is a stem, so Chenzo, the mixers, put in some of the claps with the stems. But this is what the programming's doing at that point. Actually, that was something which was amazing from the Oxford demo, that white noisy hi-hat thing. That was killer.
Yeah, crazy. That's Ed on one.
Right.
Going for it.
Let's hit that bit again.
So together...
I love that. I mean, I'd be quite happy to just hear that for 3 or 4 minutes.
There's the remix.
Yeah, definitely. Has a kind of yellow feel, you know, the Swiss band?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite kind of unpredictable.
And then in that, you've got a mixture of about 6 different drum machines, all with... So when Ed puts his drum machines down, everybody can have a sandwich and relax for an hour while we go through in Oxford or when we're working together. And he'll come up with this mad part of which, if you hear it on its own, you think this, you're not even listening to the same song. But then you put it in the song and it sounds brilliant. That's the genius of Ed Lay right there. And there is something about it. I think Ed kind of knows how it's going to come together.
Yeah, I mean, what he's doing isn't a million miles from what I'm doing. It's basically the same thing. It's kind of like a restlessness to it, you know?
Yeah.
But I think the thing that was interesting about the feel of these rhythm tracks is that instead of the live drums being gridded so that they fit with the programming, we actually moved a lot of the programming to fit with the live drums. So it's not, even if you do have a consistent pattern for 8 bars or something, the programming is all moving with the live drums.
It's not bang on the grid.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a bit,
it was interesting to work in that way.
Yeah.
It is. And also, I touched on another point there. When you're recording the band, when you're recording and playing their instruments, I mean, I've been recording them for quite a few years now, and you notice things and how certain people play. And Ed always plays slightly behind the beat. He sounds metronomic, but there's always a swing to how he plays.
Right.
Tom always plays just in front of the beat on his piano. There's always this bizarre mismatching. No one's ever really on the grid. And I used to try and correct all of it, but I always thought it sounded not as good. So I always just kind of played them off each other until it got to the right kind of point where it did sound cool.
You do want the energy of the band, you know, I think, overall, no matter how far you go into sounds. And I mean, I remember when Russ was the first time I recorded him playing bass, it was just fucking joyful. You know, his sound is just so good.
This is another one. It's got a great bass line actually on this one. In the choruses, it's the classic Russell Leach bass line.
We got to have it.
Yes, Russell.
I can see him as well, moving around.
It's almost like a Clash kind of bass line.
Yeah.
Still, the combination is so powerful, and it's really interesting hearing the drums because that sounds like a completely live performance.
The thing is about that is as well that the way, because we always obviously we make a record, and then when we go into rehearsals before we take the record on tour, we dig through all this stuff because obviously a lot of it, you know, you need like 20 arms to play. So Ed always captures the best of what he's put on a record live. He knows what he's going to be playing that next year, and that it's doable.
Yeah, very interesting. So, in terms of because the song itself is 6 minutes long, but about 4 minutes in, you've got this 5-second pause, and then it comes back in, and then it's almost like that's the separate third part of the song because the verses don't return. It's just a thing in itself.
The outro.
Yeah,
But there are a couple of tunes which had these long instrumental or largely instrumental outros. And I remember when I first heard that and realised what you're doing, I thought that was really great. And it was good to make it like a kind of more of a journey, if you know what I mean, rather than a kind of a static energy to try and build it a bit. And I think on that one, this was one of the things that stayed from before I knew what I was doing, and they just wanted some extra sounds. So there's some vocals in there which are the Max granulator,
they're cool.
and also
really
I think
cool.
you stutter edit a bit, but those tom vocals, and yeah.
I mean, this section is just so killer live now.
Yeah.
It feels so good.
I bet. Is it writhing bodies with arms aloft?
It's so satisfying to play this end bit. Especially, I mean, I think in some of our live shows, we seek this straight into No Harm from the record before.
Oh, wow.
And it works perfectly. So the last kick drum hard cuts directly into the completely opposite vibe of No Harm.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting. This song is kind of full time, but half time as well.
Yeah.
Sort of anyway.
Yeah, fantastic work. So, so we're going to listen to Darkness at the Door in just a moment, but before that, let's have a quick blast of violence in all its glory.
Let's go for it.
I've got to ask, I mean, hearing that again, is that sung back to you by the crowd now that you're performing that live?
Yeah.
I bet they love doing that too.
It's an incredible hook.
It is a great
I really
hook.
got goosebumps when Tom brought that in.
Yeah.
I
It's one of
would
those
quite
moments.
like to hear a proper techno remix of it, though. No, that song, in a way, just to see
We should get someone to do it.
how
You've got the
heavy
parts
they
there,
might
John.
take that.
Take it away.
Yeah, gosh, I'd be starting from scratch. What does this do? Darkness at the Door, though, is the song we're going to listen to and look at now. So where does this fit? So was this, did you do a similar process for this song?
I think it was more drawn out, wasn't it? There's more versions of
There's
this.
slightly more versions. I guess this was maybe the last song that we were working on in Oxford.
Yeah.
And Tom's, if you go back to Tom's demo again.
The first demo.
Maybe do demo 2, actually.
Okay.
So yeah, once again, Tom sent us this demo across. He normally sends a couple of demos that maybe explore the tempo of the song a little bit, but the general vibe's quite similar.
This is our corner of the planet. It's the straight edges we inhabit. We ignore the darkness at the door. Turn the lights out if you hear me. Stop your screaming, just speak clearly. The lonely and the right.
It's really laid back, this one.
Friends and nothing more. This old town still gets out of line. Darkness at the door to greet me. This old town still gets out of line.
It always kind of, to me, had I guess maybe like a bit of a gospel-y vibe.
Yeah.
It's the first sign of an affliction, familiarity of an addiction. That old friend's a welcome sight.
But once again, you can kind of see the song is there. So we get into Oxford, and we started.
This one was...
It was quite tough, this one.
It's tough because we went two completely different routes.
Oh, I didn't hear this.
And the thing with this one that we found tricky was transforming the da into a sort of more band feel. I think it probably ended up a bit reggae as well.
Yeah.
Again.
It's the default setting when you don't know what to do. Just go reggae, man.
But we did, if you listen to Darkness Oxford 3, which I guess was our sort of attempt I always thought this one was a bit more like a Kate Bush.
Is this the one we were talking about earlier?
Slash Cyndi Lauper kind of vibe, which was following the duh.
Yeah, it's quite light. It's really light.
Stop your screaming, just speak clearly. The lonely, the righteous, I just need friends and nothing more. This old town still gets out of line. Darkness at the door to greet me. This old town still gets out of line. Darkness at the door to greet me.
That bit is very Cyndi Lauper, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that bit.
There's definitely talk of Lauper a lot when we were doing this, especially that warm synth underneath it.
Yeah.
It's the first sign of affliction, familiarity of addiction.
It's just quite playful, this one, to be honest, and it kind of suffered in the way that it didn't really sound like anything else on the record or anything else we were working on, because we quite often work on something for a bit and then flick to another track just so we could give that a rest and then come back to see if we really liked it or not. But that was to a completed demo stage, ready to...
Yeah, we were kind of tossing and turning with it, and then I think we came back to it and sort of thought, let's have another go.
I think the horns changed everything.
The horns, and Russell came up with this kind of really, I guess it's kind of like it's a hip hop kind of thing, and because we were struggling so much with the rigidness of the dun dun. I remember that I started this thing that just went dun dun, and it sort of started to become a bit more. I guess there was a bit more tension.
There's
and
a lot more
excitement.
energy.
So if we go into the Oxford 4, then you'll hear this hip hop beat that Russell has done, and the sort of extended horns.
There's a lot more lo-fi bridging the gap as well. There's less space. You start getting filled up with a lot of low-end synth with quite some heavy distortion going on.
This is our corner planet. It's the sweet edges we inhabit. We know the darkness of the door. Turn the lights out and hear me. Stop the screaming, just be clear. The lonely, the righteous, just need friends and nothing more. This old town still gets out of line. Darkness at the door to greet me. This old town still gets out of line.
Has this got your guitar riff on it? I think it might do.
Yeah.
I like this guitar.
Yeah. Cheeky cowboy.
But that's the song there, isn't it? I mean, by Demo
that
4.
is it. It was the kind of saved it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember we sent an email to our managers, Rob and Jackie, because it was quite last moment. We were like, we've changed Darkness, and we're just not sure. Is it a bit mental? Please reply quickly and just say whether we should just stop this weird psychedelic hip hop track thing, or we should continue. And I think they were like, no, there's something exciting about it. And then we went in, because we actually went in with this track with you, Leo, before
At Lyndhurst.
Yeah, this was kind of like the
Livingston.
tryout in a way,
This one,
wasn't it?
Livingston, yeah, this is the first one of the first ones we got in a room with you.
Yeah, it was. And it was one of my favourite tracks as well from all the ones, because it had a sort of Talking Heads thing about it.
Yeah.
Like that Demo 4.
Yeah, because we sent it to Ben, and Ben put in this ARP in the verses, which was a bit Talking Heads, and then you guys worked on that guitar thing.
Oh yeah, we got the harmonizer. You made me play the guitar without knowing what I was playing.
Oh yeah, and it was good, wasn't
And
it?
I had that the Talking Headsy guitar thing that came out of it. You were just messing around with the pedal.
It was it was like an eventide pitch thing, and you did know what you're doing, so don't be too modest, Justin.
And that stayed, didn't it? That's
that's playing
that
off the
was it.
multi-track now.
yeah, right.
But when we got to the end, that's when you were
I started doing that.
We started
weird
messing
post
around.
rocky type stuff on the outro as well.
Yeah, and we played it. I can't remember what it was, but I was tweaking around with the chorus, and it was going really out of tune.
Yeah. I wouldn't have a clue how to play that now.
Yeah, this had an outro as well. God, we went outro-tastic on Byron.
Pure prog.
Yeah, because it was a long outro and had a
very long outro, yeah.
really interesting chord sequence, but it still felt open when we were in the studio as to what actually would happen. So your guitar part there kind of glued it all together, didn't it?
And there's the thing that I'm listening to that there. I just remember how the drums on that one sounded amazing. I think we were all really out because Max went out and tweaked with a snare or something, and I remember
Max,
there being
who was the engineer.
Max was the engineer, and there being a big smiley face from you and Max because of the snare with the he had really nice sound to it.
Yeah, he's a brilliant engineer, Max. He uses a lot of parallel. Yeah, he uses a lot of parallel processing while putting things down, which it's quite unusual to do that nowadays in a way. But most people will record things often quite clean and do all the parallel stuff in the mix. But Max really gets close to the final sound as it's going down, and it's really exciting and very impressive to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of things on the fly as well.
Yeah, he does. He's not afraid to get his hands
just getting in, start EQing stuff and
while it's going down.
which is amazing.
Because I
potentially dangerous, or
well, that's kind of the fun of it.
Yeah.
I think that's a great thing about it. I mean, I got taught that when I first started recording, like mid-90s, and it was you kind of had to commit because there wasn't the power of processing afterwards, and you were recording to tape, and that was that. So if you wanted something, and you didn't have much ammo in terms of outboard gear, then you had to make it sound like that on the way down because you weren't going to get a chance to do it again.
I do think that he's the only recording engineer who I've worked with. I mean, I've worked with producers who have done that kind of thing on the fly and actually changed the EQ of a track while it's going down. He's the only person I know who's done that as an engineer.
Yeah, he's a very creative engineer.
Yeah, because I met him playing guitar on sessions. Like, he's recorded me playing guitar on various things over the years, and I never had a chance to work with him as an engineer, but I always loved working with him because it was like jamming with him. He changed stuff so much.
Is it possible to hear that great snare sound that got you smiling?
Yeah. That's the snare. That's just the raw kit.
Oh, it does sound good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So good, I love the deep, the deep
so
snare.
Full and round.
Yeah. And then with the programming.
It's really good.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's just got all the options. He kind of knows what to go out front and do when you're just talking about the track. He's already forming plans on how he's going to get that sound.
Yeah, and it's recording a band or producing a band is really different from recording a solo artist or even a solo artist with a band. With a real band, there's so much more energy in the room and loads of conversations happening at once, loads of opinions flying around all the time, and it's really fun and really exciting. And for the engineer to kind of join in with that, but also get such great results so quickly, there's really not many people that can do that. And I really rate Max a lot. I think he's a big part of this record.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you think that's because they're not encouraged to do that so much? Or do you think that they treat everyone with a certain reverence where they wouldn't dare get...
Oh, what you mean in a solo artist situation?
Or with a band, because the producer has an official hat and he's the producer. The band are the band members. So the engineer might not feel that they have permission to get that proactive with regard to how things are being done, because they might think, oh, well, we need that okayed by the band or the producer.
I think it kind of comes down to a personality thing. And as a producer, you kind of figure out what sort of team you're going to put together. And I'd had loads of conversations with Max about how much I enjoyed the way that he worked and stuff. And there was no way that he was going to come on the session and not be himself. You know? But that was the first session we did. And I was really happy it worked out so well, because it's funny working with people for the first time. It can be a bit nerve-wracking, to be honest.
So, and Darkness at the Door, once you'd had one of the first songs that you worked on together, and then did you complete it in mono in Wales then? Or
I think we picked it again, didn't we?
Yeah, I think there was a few things actually.
I think, the paraphonic went on that.
The paraphonic, that was it.
because we worked a bit at Lynch Mob Studio as well on it. I remember this was before we went to Wales.
Mono Valley.
Yeah. And we did a bit of work on it, but it was more of a kind of check back, is this ready to mix kind of situation. I think we did do most of it at Livingston. I just took it home and edited it a bit. But yeah, it was all there.
Interesting. I mean, it just shows how once you get to, from Tom's demo to the Oxford demos where, that's kind of the band kind of playing in a room together and sussing it all out and what works best. And then the leap to the sonic clarity or the making it perfect stage. We hear the evolution of the editor's sound on these songs that Tom brings to the band, don't we? Because in some ways, these demos that we hear of Tom, they could be treated in such a completely different way. They would not end up sounding like editors without the rest of
totally.
you.
He talks about that quite a lot, actually. It's when we go out and do interviews for the records, it always comes back to how do you differentiate your songs that you start with to being an editor's record. And what we're doing here is the evolution of how it happens. It's really hard to explain to someone, to a journalist, when you've got 10 minutes in front of them, but it's a step-by-step process of everyone filtering in. And I mean, the difference now is me and Elliot in the last 3 records to how they did it before. All that filtering went on with, 4 dudes in a room with guitars. Now it's more of a studio-based band that can take it any which way it wants, and then
it's quite a democratic process between the 5 of us as well. We're very much a 5-headed.
Yeah, I was going to say, quite often as a producer, you have to make sure that everyone's having their voice heard and stuff like that. But in your band, it really worked well. Like, very democratic and very positive. And it's unusual to have so many kind of production-y type heads in the same band.
Yeah.
Because there's you guys, obviously, but then also, Ed thinks that way,
exactly.
And Russell thinks that way, even though he
well.
seems to like to keep it under his hat a bit. But he
does keep it under his hat.
He's a killer programmer and loads of great ideas. Yeah. And, it was a real pleasure seeing the way that you guys have come to this way of working. It made it very easy for me.
It just feels like a really natural way to, because when me and Elliot were brought into the band, I think we kind of made it very clear that we come from, we've always worked like this. The way that we're working now is how me and Elliot grew up working with our bands. So for us to join a band, that kind of baggage, although positive, has to be lumped in with it. It's like, let's get in a room and start
throwing demos
instead of going to a studio and just thrashing it out.
Yeah,
let's spend a lot of time. And I know that the band experienced a lot of that with Flood on their 3rd record, and saw what the possibilities are if you just expand your horizons a bit further in terms of instrumentation and recording techniques. And so when 2 producers join your band and your band's just been through a production record, we did 4th record, which was just to cement us as a band, which was thrashing it out in a room with guitars.
Yeah, that wasn't very much a production record.
And then when we felt comfortable that we could be a band with 5 people in, that's when this kind of way we work now started. Which is, it's a really good way. It means we can really craft Tom's songs into a place where we wouldn't really imagine them to start off. And I guess that's what makes the editors sound now. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think before we move on to Nothingness, which is the other song we're going to look at, let's have a blast of the finished version of Darkness at the Door then. Definitely an editor's song that you can hear all the different directions. We mentioned Kate Bush and Cyndi Lauper and Talking Heads, and you can kind of hear all that, but it still remains editors. And clearly, how we've heard it so far, Tom comes up with a song idea and then shares it. And Tom could have done these things in just him on his own, and it would have quite a different feel. And clearly, he needs the rest of you to create what is editors. With Nothingness, the 3rd of the songs that we're going to look at, which is quite a contrasting song to Darkness at the Door and Violence, isn't it? How did this one work, and how can we hear how you all play to your strengths in a way?
This actually does show quite a lot of the various stations that are dotted around the studio when we work on Tom's demos. And going back to what you were just saying there, the one thing that does bind it together is Tom's voice. Do you know what I mean? Which kind of does, in a really weird way,
anchor everything.
Yeah, no matter where we go sound-wise, you stick his voice on it, and it's instantly in Editor's world. There's a darkness and a depth.
And also, I would say the strength of his songwriting, really, because it's not like Tom ever relies on something for his songwriting. It's not like you come in with a demo and if you take out the guitar part, then, it's not as cool, it's not as good. You know, he's quite old school in the way that it's about the chords, the vocal melody, and the lyrics. And they're the three backbones of his songs, which allows, when he brings it to the rest of us, we can sort of take it anywhere. And those 3 points remain.
Yeah, that's the foundation. Like, especially with this one, Nothingness. I mean, it's an absolutely bizarre song in the way it's arranged and the way it chops and changes. But some of it is the chords that make the melodies pop, and the voice on tying it all together is Tom's.
This is also a very important song in the record, because when we first went to Oxford, we did 2 stints there. One was in the back end of 2016, and then we took a 2-month break and came back and did another 2-month stint in February 2017. And in the first stint, we actually were finding it quite difficult to find where we wanted to take the record and find the sound. And this Nothingness was kind of the start of us going, okay, this is interesting. We've started to get that sort of amalgamation of electronics and band into a kind of place that we want to go. So, maybe we should start with, again, maybe hearing Tom's demo, and then we can get into some things.
I'm not mining for gold, but insecurity. Fooled by a trick of the light. Are you there? Oh, what a day to be low. Where is the good in me? 5 steps back from the past. Are you there?
And when we get to this point of Tom and his demos, do you know how many stages they've gone through before this?
Never really. It works really fast. Even Leo will attest, when he the main vocal you get on Editor's records is not the result of many takes. It's a couple of takes.
No, I've got to say he's very modest about it and almost kind of anti-compliments. But he is definitely one of the greatest singers I've ever recorded.
Hold my life in your hands, if you did.
I mean, you can hear that. That's his demo from home.
Yeah.
It sounds as good as the record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's really
it's absolutely
really
nuts.
good.
When I first started, first time I recorded him properly was on No Harm on In Dream, which is the first tune, which is a very similar tune to this one, that it dictated the rest of the record. On that record, it was No Harm. It was like, when that dropped, it's like, right, we know what we're doing now. But when I did his vocals, it was 2 takes. And then it was like, I'll just choose the best one. I was like, all right. And then he went for a cup of tea, and then I was thinking, maybe I'll go through it and see if there's anything. I was like, there's none. It's like, they're both exactly the same. So you just choose one, and then that's your main vocal, and that's that. Where he just bowls up, does it, and then goes away. It's quite remarkable, really. I've never really worked with anyone like that before.
It's very unusual. Very unusual.
It's quite unnerving, actually, because you're like, well, growing up with bands and being in studios and stuff, you're usually dreading when it's lead vocal time because you could turn into hell.
Well, yeah, because the other thing is you never really know until you get in the studio with someone whether, you don't know how much work's been done on all of the elements.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
Exactly.
So it's always I think anyone being incredibly good at what they do is always a surprise, in some way, like a nice surprise. You expect people to be good, but not that good.
So when you get his demo, it's not going to change that much. Because he's thought about and he's sculpted all these chords around, and with his lyrics and stuff, and it's like, right.
And also, it's like, listen to that, it's fucking brilliant.
It's like, and it's like, you don't have to, and in a technical way as well, I don't think I use literally nothing on his voice. He brings his own mic, which is even better. He brings his mic, gets it out of his box, screws it on, sticks his
Does he?
sticks. Yeah, he brings his
Does he have a
up.
particular microphone that he favours then?
U87, a Neumann U87, a really nice one as well, a really, really, really nice one.
Actually, he did bring his mic, didn't he?
Yeah, so he just rocks up with his 87 from his house, and then you run the track through once for a bit of level, and then he's like, all right then, and then that's it. There's a compressor and a little bit of reverb while he's taking it, and that's it.
And there's tons of energy, obviously, in the vocal, like perfect energy. And then afterwards, if you try and say that was good, he'll just be like, all right,
He'd be like,
do you think he'd leave and then like goes back to his room and say, yes?
Yeah, he walks outside, punches the air, composes himself, and then walks back in. Really nonchalant.
He must do.
It's interesting though, because... Sorry, you go on, Justin, you carry on.
It's the same with his harmonies as well, and because he'll turn around and 20 minutes later, you've got like 20, 30 tracks of vocals and harmonies out of nothing. It's like, there's no editing doing, you're just recording it, which is, you don't really get that. It's quite a rare thing. Well, I've only ever had it with him, so it's bizarre.
And it's interesting, I get the impression then with the demo, before he goes in to record the demo, he's maybe writing a few words, mulling over a few things, thinking it all in his head, so that the demo ends up being the first realization of it. It's not as if he's done piecemeal demos beforehand before he does one complete demo that he then shares with
unless
you.
He's got a handy stash of iPhone voice memos, which he probably has.
He's the only person that I've ever met that's... He's incredibly generous with his songs, being able to... he doesn't come in and go, right, we're going to do this, you're going to do that. He's very up for collaboration and allowing people to try and take songs in different ways, which I think is quite unusual as well. If I write piece of music, then I tend to know where I'm going to take it, and I want it to go there. Whereas he's very much like, okay, he'll sit back and go, let's see what anyone can bring to the table. I think that's a very generous way
for a visual here, especially on this record. So what we're in like a rehearsal room. It's a working rehearsal room as well. So these bands rehearsing either side. It was like local bands who come in. It's their local rehearsal room. But we've gone in. I think Tom just drove out to Oxford one day, went to look at rehearsal room, and then we were like, I don't know why.
I think because it had a derelict glass building outside that he thought looked cool.
It looked cool. He sent us some photos. And we chose this place to go and essentially, we say it's going just for writing, but it's never just for writing now. It's like if we find a spot, we move in.
We take everything piece of gear that we
and
own.
All our gear's there. So we split up the room. I've got one end of the room with recording, like usually just a UA interface and, a handful of mics and a laptop.
And that's kind of the hub where everything goes into.
Yeah. And then from there, everything's wired up so I can capture from Elliot, who's got his like Wakeman-esque scaffolding set up full of synths and a guitar setup. I've got a couple of amps and a guitar next to me, next to the recording stuff. Ed takes the middle of the room. He's got this really long table, like a plasterer's table. Then he brings all his stuff in Tupperware.
Yeah.
Him and Russell have got like this, I don't know, this obsession with very, really, really organised. So there's no like scrabbling around for chargers and AC adapters. They're all labelled. And so they tip up with boxes of stuff. And Russell has his laptop and his synths and his bass and his amp.
He uses his machine a lot.
Tom's got barely anything. He's got a piano.
A couple of keyboards.
And a couple of keyboards if needed, and a guitar that he'll never really play.
Yeah.
So that's how it looks in our room, is just like 5 stations of
stuff.
And then, sometimes everyone's got their own little mixer as well. So sometimes they'll go into headphones. Or if we've got like going back to something like Violence, if that kick drum's going around, I'll have the kick drum running from the main recording bit into wedges around the room, so everyone's got the kick drum, and then they'll go into headphones and start working on little parts while this kick drum's on loop, and then someone will take the headphones up, pop up and say, I've got a part, and then we'll route it to my recording and we'll take it, and then I'll edit it in, and that's how we build the track.
Wow, so
it's like a factory.
Yeah, 5 different people kind of boffening away while a pulse goes on in the background, and that's.
And then it'll come to me, and I'll make some choices on, and usually put some sauce. Elliot will ask for a bit of sauce on his keyboards.
I remember the sauce. Here we go.
The sauce. Get some sauce.
That's your answer to everything.
Which I think is just basically delay or reverb.
Sometimes it's a combination of both.
Ketchup on mayonnaise.
Yeah. And it's a very, really, really, really quick way of recording.
Oh yeah, I think that's another thing with making this record, which is why we felt that we needed additional production or getting in someone like Ben or Leo. Was we tend to work pretty quickly.
It's blazingly
There's not
fast.
a lot of time to do very, very detailed program. A lot of what we do is trying to capture, I guess, Tom's imagination and excitement and keep him excited and interested in what's going. So a lot of that involves just like working on the fly, like throwing analog synths in quickly, not, necessarily spending loads of time doing automation and things like that. It's all about just trying to get the essence of what we're trying to create.
Mm. And in on this one, specifically this song, Nothingness, is it's anti everything that I just told you, because me, Tom, and Russell had a day off, and we left Elliot and Ed in the studio with the recording setup, and they just took Nothingness into this. They basically made the chorus groove, which is what everything was based around.
Yeah.
And I remember I came in the day after, and Ed had put some drums down, and I just made him sound a little bit Bowie, but just put a bit of slap delay on and something, and then kind of everything started. And then me, Tom, and Russ came back, and we really liked it. And then that was the blueprint, and then we started jumping on with that.
Yeah. So
maybe let's listen to.
Should we have a listen to that bit? That
Oxford one, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, with this one, I think we had, before the guys left, me and Ed, we had this sort of the whomping synth.
I'm not here for the show. I'm not buying it.
And this kind of, it's quite ominous.
5 steps back from the path, if you did.
We knew at this point that we wanted the verse and the chorus to be quite a contrast, and it to kind of just, I guess, explode a little bit on the verse and the chorus. And
Let it go, let it go. We waited for nothing else.
There it is. That's that like French groove with the bass.
That's it. Yeah, we worked on this kind of. Me and Ed worked on this French. I guess we were trying to do like maybe some kind of Daft Punk weekend sort of swing thing.
It's really melancholy, this version.
It is. It does feel quite down, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think that's why I don't know. Is that why I put a blazing guitar solo on the end?
I don't think it's the only
It's
reason.
outrageous, and that was only a joke as well. I didn't put the solo on as a joke. It was kind of like
I always try and make Justin do solos.
yeah. They want me to do solos, and And
because he's come from such a cool place. Do you know what I mean? Your code name is Milo and things, and all the guitars were so angsty and mathy.
Yeah.
I was just like, go on, put a Top Gun solo on it.
Yeah, and I did as well. And it's a really strange one. Actually, a little nerdy recording note on this one. On that beginning synth, sat behind that beginning synth that was going vroom, vroom, is a stereo layer of a Leo Abrahams sample pack, of which...
is that sample pack commercially available?
Yeah.
Yes, the Spitfire Audio Enigma pack starring Leo Abrahams.
That's also why we probably like this guy Leo.
Yeah, because maybe this is like subconsciously we were thinking about Leo all along, because I was using his instruments on our record. You know the one, Leo, the really bizarre, weird, atonally kind of
I think so.
pad thing, granular paddy thing.
Oh yeah, and then I just sidechained it.
And then we sidechained it.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that. But
Well, there you go.
it's I mean, again, listening to that, the song it's all there, isn't it? It was really just about getting a bit more. Well, to be honest, I guess just like recording the drums really nicely, and then trying to put a bit.
I think
more,
you managed to get a lot more groove in the chorus.
Yeah.
I put
and space.
Yeah. Well, actually, what we could do is listen to like the stems, and I think this was one of the ones that you sent me before we'd actually met.
Yes,
And
this is the one that you did the like ad prod stuff on.
I did an ad prod, and I put on that mini brute art thing, which was that was actually played.
By ad prod, you mean additional production?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Just in case people aren't familiar with the language.
Yeah, and then the only other like really new stuff from that, it was the mini brute hook and a lot of vocal processing stuff. And and usually
on the vocal processing, I don't know if it ended up in the final mix on that version there. Tom did a couple of takes on this bizarre DJ mixer that he was playing with. Remember?
Yeah, because we didn't have enough mixes, so Russell had his Pioneer DJ 9000 mixer, which Tom used. Obviously, it's got effects in it that Tom ended up absolutely loving messing around with the effects on this DJ mixer.
It was on all the time, wasn't it? It was like he'd just be saying something like, "Do you want a cup of tea?" Yeah,
and that's what that is.
So is he just playing the echo or the
he's
repeat?
He's doing that live. Yeah, he's just playing
great.
along with it, and we kept it.
That's great. See, that is the drunken DJ faced with a Pioneer 9000 thinks, wow, this sounds amazing. And because I know this because I've done it myself, where you said, oh, it's got all these different effects. I'm going to try every single one. Anyway.
We ended up using it.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And actually, this was another one, Justin, where you did like a kind of improv take through the MS-20 and Ableton and messing around with it. And loads of that got in.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guitars are pretty cool in this in the end.
Yeah, got in. Oh, yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. There he is. It's on his DJ mixer.
I wasn't there for that, but I've got a really strong mental image of that now.
But I think the great thing is that as it gets more dancey and as it builds, you do think it's going to be a big drop, but instead we get the Justin guitar solo.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that makes it very editors as well, because you always edge towards this dance world, but you always keep it locked into the world of editors.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a subconscious eye to the future of when we're actually playing it. I don't think we think.
We don't think like that because we would think a lot better about it.
Yeah, maybe. I think subconsciously, like, we're a band on stage.
Yeah. I think, there's always an
Editors
element.
is a band anyway, and it's always been known as a band and a very good live band. It's the evolution of a band as well. You think Editors Mark 1 is all guitar.
Yeah.
And then when they did Record 3 and went into synths, I don't know, maybe they just discovered that they didn't want to play guitars all the time.
I think, we've been looking for that balance between, I guess, electronics and guitar band. And I feel like on this record, we managed to do it.
Yeah, I think this is the best version of it. Definitely. And I got to play solo or two.
Yeah. I do want to hear the
nice.
solo. Yeah.
I think Leo made me do this solo quite a few times as well.
Yeah, this was maybe the only thing that you
I was
just
enjoying
couldn't
it
get
so
right.
much. You got it on the first take. Do you want to hear the solo in solo?
I don't. Does it sound good? Yeah, Elliot does.
All right.
See, the thing is in my head, I feel like I'm Joey Santiago of the Pixies, when everyone else's head is just Top Gun.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? In my head, I'm like, I'm living my Pixies dream, but I'm not.
So when Black Francis turns to Joey and says, "Rock me, Joe," that's when you step up to the plate and do.
That's when I step up and I'm like, it's early 90s, and I'm just doing unison bends exactly like Joey Santiago, but I'm not. I'm just it's a lot more rock than that, isn't it?
It is.
It's good. It's great. I think we'll play Nothingness in all its glory after we've gone through a few of these questions. So we've got a few other questions that have come from listeners, and we've got a few tape note repeating questions as well, which I'll just run through first of all. So one of them is there a plug-in or a piece of kit that you really love to use? That you default?
I think the heart of an editor's record in the last 2 times is a Juno 106.
Yeah, I think the Juno 106 has been in the editor's canon for a while, especially since I've been in the band.
A lot of the heart. Because Tom has one of those at home as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he plays around on that. A well-tuned piano.
Well-tuned piano.
On the recording side, Tom's own Neumann U87, and a lot of other stuff from a recording side. It's a really simple setup. It's like bedroom setup. I think In Dream was even more lo-fi. That was like,
but we had quite a lot
old MacBook
analog and hardware there. I guess pick one thing, Justin.
One thing.
A great vocal mic, I think, is pivotal.
Yeah. But Tom's Neumann, because we've used it on everything. It's been an acoustic mic. It's been overhead mic on drums. It's been everything.
Piano mic, yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Leo? Do you have a particular thing that you always like to use when you're working with all sorts of people?
I was thinking about that. I kind of like to find a different thing for each band. It's a classic, but I do really love the MS-20 because you can just do so much with it, and processing audio through it is such a lot of fun. On this record, there was a Russian synth called an iLiter, which is quite rare, and that got used a lot.
Absolutely loved it.
I mean, we're all synth geeks in the band to an extent, and it's rare to find a synth that sounds really different to other synths, but I think it does, doesn't it? It's something about it.
Yeah, when you put it in a mix,
it
just
insane. Cuts through.
And so what is the MS-20 then?
The MS-20 is a Korg, classic Korg design from the late 70s that it's been reissued now. But it's like
I did a lot of my guitar through there, didn't I, Leo?
Yeah, it's like a modular synth with a keyboard attached to it. So it's monophonic. You can't play more than one note at a time.
Right.
But you can plug other things into it and then use drums to trigger. Like there's a bit of... Should I play a bit?
Yeah.
There's a bit of rhythmic guitar in Nothingness, which is the Justin through the MS-20. So yeah, that was a really important one for that record. And then also the granulator, like the Henk granulator in Ableton was great because I put a lot of Tom's vocals in that and made kind of pads out of the vocals. Actually, not on these tracks so much, but Cold has a lot of that going on. But there's so many flavors in it already. It wasn't so much of a. I felt like I didn't have to add much. It was more like reframing what was there.
Yeah, looking at things in a wider sense. Do you have any advice for any aspiring musicians or producers, Leo, and then Elliot and Justin?
Oh, me first.
Yeah, why not? I put you first.
I would say the holistic answer to that is to take it as seriously as you can, because it is a serious commitment and it will take over a lot of your life, hopefully in a good way, but also to keep a good relationship with it, because it's a very difficult business to be in, and it can be quite painful sometimes because you can put so much into things and it doesn't quite work, and you're also dealing with music, which is something so personal and so important to you. And to expose that part of yourself to something as insane as the music business is, I think, I don't know, it's kind of, it can be risky. So I'd say keep the big picture. And also, when you're working on music for hours and hours and hours and stuff, I think the main skill that you have to develop is to be able to zoom in on the details for as long as it takes, but then zoom out again, and to be able to look at the situation from all different standpoints, and keeping that flexibility, I think, is really important. It's one reason why I think a lot of my favourite musicians and producers actually went to art school and not music school, like Brian and David Byrne and David Bowie. People who went to art school seem to have a greater ability to study the problem from different standpoints and not let their egos get too kind of beaten up or too involved.
Yeah.
So Fairly rambling answer, but that's it.
No, that sounds great. And what about you, Elliot and Justin? What do you think?
Go on, Al.
Go on,
Let me go first. For aspiring musicians is, I think, to kind of follow where you initially wanted to go. I work on a lot of things in order to scratch a lot of itches in terms of taste and, what I want to hear myself creating. And I think to allow yourself to do that and not be bogged down by what anyone would be perceiving to be cool or relevant or any of those things is to, from the off, never take any of that on board and just crack on regardless, because it's so personal and transient that it doesn't really matter. So if you want to go and make an 80s hair metal record, go and make an 80s hair metal record. If you want to go and make a happy hardcore record, make a happy hardcore record. But I think at the end of the day, you've got to love doing it, and you've got to want to have fun doing it, and you've got to personally scratch that itch. And but someone from the outside or press or any other thing might be, it's rubbish because it sounds like this, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter, it's music. This is what I wanted to create, and I created it. So, fuck you, basically. And I think carry that as a band when you're in a band as well, because you're just striving to make the record you want to make, and you're not really thinking about anyone else apart from the people who are in the room. And I think that kind of element of, I'm rambling now as well, Leo, is just to, if you're feeling you want to do something, just go and fucking do it, because there's only yourself stopping you from doing it.
Elliot, do you have any?
I'll keep mine really short. I think just follow your instincts and what's in your gut rather than maybe what can sometimes get into your head in terms of outside influence, and always trust your instincts and your own taste.
Oh, can I add a technical one as well?
Yeah.
If you can't do anything or you can't work out how to do something, go on YouTube.
Yeah, the modern way.
Because there isn't a producer or musician in the land who doesn't check YouTube.
Daily.
Yeah. That's very interesting. We've got some listener questions as well, and they're from different parts of the world, intriguingly. And one of these relates into what we've discussed a little bit. So Michelle from the Pinkpop, Netherlands, who is the genius who put violence together with no harm? You were telling us how that now works in the live set, and they say that's a highlight of every live gig now.
I think we just realised that they were the same tempo, but violence felt full time, and no harm felt half time. And we always
we do it quite a lot. We add intros and outros to a lot of the stuff when it turns live, because I think, especially in editors, is the songs take another life of their own. As soon as we take them live, they turn into different songs, and they always carry on evolving as we play them. And I think we did like a really rough edit of it when we were getting ready for touring the last time out, and it just worked, so it stuck.
Yeah, it's become a bit of a moment. It's great.
Colin from the Netherlands wonders, we've touched upon this a little bit, but how did you decide which elements of the Blank Mass versions to include in the final version of Violence?
A lot of that was to do with Leo, actually, because we had our version of the Oxford sessions and Ben's Blank Mass versions, and then we got in the studio with Leo, and he was kind of, I guess, the brutal person at the end of the day who went, nah, yes, nah, from both sessions.
It was just what fitted with the things that we were trying to achieve. And actually, it's been really interesting hearing the final kind of blossoming of Ben's vision for the record, which is now out.
Yeah.
So
you can
it's a very
get
different
the Blank
record.
Mass version.
It's a totally different record. I think it's not quite, it's not what it was 18 months ago, but the vibe is that. And I think a lot of his versions 18 months ago were on the way to being kind of his mixes, So a lot of it was things from Oxford that had been effectively mixed or reprocessed.
Yeah.
So, I guess in a way, there wasn't much of it left on the original Violence in the end, but I think it deeply informed the process and what the final shape of the record was,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's almost like he's the sixth figure in this whole. This whole.
And we had some great phone calls and
too many producers.
But in this instance, it's worked. They say too many cooks, but this hasn't spoiled the broth.
It's just part of the process. It was all part of the process.
Some more technical things from Josh from Bristol. Justin, how did you find creating your own sound for editors? And how did you find integrating your guitar sound on older editors' tracks?
I think at the beginning, I was really wary of not fucking up how it had already sounded. I remember listening to those records when they were out. And I think right at the beginning, I was kind of wary about, I know that when we go out on tour, everyone's going to expect a certain register of guitar. So I tried to stay quite true to that in regards to Chris's parts, which is cool, and they're really cool parts to play live as well. It's but I was very present about how I wanted my guitars to sound. But the rest of them were like, just make it your own. Do what you want to do. And especially on these last two records, I'm, heavily involved in recording. So especially on this record, it was great to go in with Leo because I didn't have to touch any buttons. I didn't have to record anything or, be on that side of the fence. I could just
be a guitarist.
Be a guitarist, but I'd be a guitarist with a producer who wants you to play guitar in a way that you've never played guitar before, which is really welcoming. I mean, I've always kind of like not sat back on the guitar, but I've always been quite busy sorting everyone else's parts out when we're putting these records together. And guitar's not really an afterthought because, when we did Hallelujah, it was like, oh, we need a riff. All right, so I just strapped the guitar on, and then we got a big riff.
That ties in with it. Billy from Maidstone wants to know. I love the riff in Hallelujah. How did you get it so dirty?
It was actually. I think
there's a synth with it.
There's a synth that I wrote it on a synth. I wrote it on a synth first, and then everyone laughed.
In Pro Tools,
on Vacuum in Pro Tools, are like a free synth because I had this this melody in my head when we were looping that part around when everyone was trying to work out what we were doing with it, and this melody popped into my head, and I didn't have anything to hand, so I just got Vacuum up on Pro Tools, and it's got this bizarre like octave.
Yeah, it's got like an arp on it, and it with some glide, and it shifts through the octave as you're playing it.
It sounded really kind of like, I don't know, it sounded like kind of dubsteppy or something, and it was really odd. And then we all laughed, and then I think Tom said, "Can you not just play on a guitar?" I was like, "Oh no, man, it's crazy." And then got the guitar out, and lo and behold, it turned into a monster.
That was another moment that I think definitely pushed our taste call of like, we had to go, we're going to roll with this, and it's going to be this big stonking sort of.
It's almost
filthy,
metal.
Almost metal guitar.
It's almost
riff,
rage. You know what I mean? It's like it's quite a bizarre riff to stick on an editor's record, but it is very, very, very satisfying to play.
Actually, there was one thing about that Hallelujah sound. This is for the pedal nerds.
Yeah.
When we were working on that in Livingston, we used a 4MS Duo Distorter, it's called. This is pedal of mine, which is one side of it is modelled on a fuzz face, which is a very common effect. And the other side is modelled on a big muff, which is a very common effect. But you can drive them through each other. And I'm really a big fan of DI guitar, particularly DI fuzz guitar, because it's got loads of really crazy frequencies in it and it sounds extremely close. And if you try and it can be tricky to get in phase with the amp sound, but if you use the DI with like a distant room, that is an interesting sound because all the amp frequencies are kind of further away and the front of the sound is just the straight DI and it's super aggressive. And I think that was what we did.
You also made me change the part.
Oh right.
I had like a bluesy like pull off on note on it.
It did slightly change, right?
Kind of like.
What
I don't know.
I encouraged the bluesy pull off.
Yeah, you said just put one. Bend that. I think I did it by accident. You were like, oh yeah, do that again.
Oh okay.
And then it stuck.
A bit more Metallica.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap things up. It's been so good to speak to you, Elliot and Justin and Leo. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Yeah, thanks.
For welcoming us into your world. And we're now going to hear Nothingness in all its glory, the fully realised, mastered version. Justin, Elliot and Leo, thanks again.